Listen up, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about love. You think love is all about affection, about words, about constant validation. Wrong. Some of you are in relationships confused, hurting, wondering, do they even love me? But let me tell you something. What if I told you that some of the deepest, most loyal love is completely invisible to the untrained eye? Today, I'm going to expose the truth about how an avoidant loves you back. And trust me, this is going to blow your mind how you've been lied to about love. You've been fed a fairy tale, a script, a story that says love is supposed to look a certain way, constant affection, grand romantic gestures, endless validation, but that's your version of love. That's not everyone's. And if you don't wake up to this fact, you're going to miss out on something real, something powerful. Because let me tell you, that's going to blow your mind. Avoidants love just as deeply as anyone else. They just do it differently. And if you can't recognize that, if you demand that love only looks the way you expect it to, you'll walk away from something real thinking it never even existed. Listen to me, avoidants are not cold. They are not emotionless. They are not incapable of love. In fact, they feel love so intensely, so deeply, that it actually scares them. They've been wired through past wounds, through life experiences, to see love as a risk, a battlefield, the danger zone. But when they love you with a depth that most people can't even comprehend. And the most dangerous thing you can do, the thing that will destroy your relationship before it even has a chance, is to assume they don't love you just because they don't show it the way you expect them to. That is the mistake people make over and over again. And that's why so many relationships with avoidance end before they even get started. You're waiting for them to say, I love you every day. You're waiting for them to flood you with compliments, to constantly reassure you, to hold you tight and never let go. And when they don't, you start making up stories in your head. You start thinking, maybe they don't care. Maybe I'm not important to them. Maybe I should leave. But what if I told you that everything you've been interpreting as a lack of love is actually proof of love? What if I told you that an avoidant's silence is sometimes louder than words? Because here's the truth. When an avoidant loves you, they're fighting against their own instincts every single day. Their default programming is to run, to protect themselves, to retreat. But if they are still there, if they are choosing you, even when their entire system is telling them to pull away, that is love. That is commitment. That is the purest proof of how much you mean to them. Think about this. An avoidant doesn't let just anyone in. They don't trust easily. They don't share their world with just anybody. So if they let you in, if they let you see parts of them that no one else sees, even if it's just a little, that is a massive of love. It might not look like love to you. It might not come in the form of words or grand romantic gestures. But make no mistake, it is love. You ever notice how an avoidant might not always initiate, but they respond? They might not be the first to text, but they always text back. They might not be the first to say, I miss you, but when you say it, you can feel that they do too. That's because they are constantly battling their own wiring. Every time they engage, every time they stay, every time they make an effort, no matter how small, it's a victory over their fears. And I know you want more. You want them to be as expressive as you are. You want them to say the words, to shout it from the rooftops, to erase all doubt. But here's what you need to understand. Just because their love isn't loud doesn't mean it's not there. If you don't learn to see their love for what it is, you will push them away. You will demand a type of love they don't know how to give. And in doing so, you'll make them feel like their love is never enough. And let me tell you, nothing makes an avoidant disappear faster than feeling like they will never be enough for you. So what do? You learn to see. You learn to recognize the ways they love you that don't fit in the traditional mold. You notice the fact that they remember the smallest details about you, the ones even you forget. You notice how they adjust their routine to fit you into their life. You notice how they show you pee, even when it's hard for them, even when it goes against every instinct they've developed to protect themselves. Because let me tell you something most people will never understand. When an avoidant loves you, it's not just love. It's war. It's a war inside themselves. It's a battle against every past wound, every instinct to shut down and run. And if you are the person who is worth that battle, if you are the person who makes them choose to stay, to try to open up even a little, do you even realize how special that makes you? Most people will never get that close to an avoidant. Most people will be kept at arm's length, never allowed into their inner world. But if they are letting you in, if they are trusting you, if they are choosing you over and over again, even in the smallest ways, that is the rarest, most precious love you will ever experience. And here's where most people get it wrong. Instead of appreciating that love for what it is, they try to change it. They try to force the avoidant to love differently, to be more open, to express themselves in ways that feel comfortable for them. And that is the fastest way to break an avoidant's heart. Because when you tell an avoidant, I need you to love me differently, what they hear is the way you love is not enough. And that will make them shut down. That will make them walk away. That will make them believe they are incapable of giving you what you need. So you have a choice. You can keep chasing a fantasy, keep believing that love is only real if it looks a certain way. Or you can wake up and see the love that's right in front of you. You can open your damn eyes and recognize that sometimes the deepest love is the quietest. Sometimes the people who love the hardest are the ones who are terrified of love. And if you can learn to understand that, if you can learn to appreciate love in all its forms, you will experience something that most people never do. Because an avoidant doesn't love casually. They don't love often. But when they do, when they truly let someone in, that love is forever. That love is real. That love is worth IT. So the question is, do you see it? Or are you about to throw away something rare, something deep, something life-changing just because it doesn't come in the packaging you expected? Now think about that before you make a mistake. You'll never be able to undo that. You're waiting for words. You're waiting for declarations. You're waiting for some grand romantic moment where they grab you by the face, look deep into your eyes and say, I love you more than anything. But what if I told you that by waiting for those words, you're missing the love that's already there? What if I told you that love isn't always loud, that real deep, undeniable love is sometimes silent? And if you don't learn to recognize that, you're going to push away something real, something rare, something you will regret losing for the rest of your life. You see, an avoidant won't always say it. They won't always express it the way you want them to. But let me tell you something that's going to shake your world if they are still here. If they are still showing UP, that means more than any words ever could. Because an avoidant's first instinct is to run, to escape, to disappear the moment they feel too close, too vulnerable, too exposed. Love for them isn't comfort. It's risk. It's dangerous. It's a battlefield they never wanted to step onto in the first place. And yet if they haven't left, if they are still choosing you, despite every instinct telling them to leave, that is love. Let that sink in for a second. You're looking for verbal proof, for reassurance, for constant validation, when the biggest proof of love is staring you in the face, their presence. The fact that they haven't walked away. Do you have any idea how hard that is for them? Do you have any clue what it takes for an avoidant to stay when every fiber of their being is wired to protect themselves by leaving? And yet they're still here. That is their love language. That is their way of saying, I care about you enough to fight my own fears. I care about you enough to go against my own instincts. I care about you enough to stay. But most people don't see it. Most people confuse silence for indifference. They assume that if someone isn't pouring out their feelings 24/7, then they must not care. And that's the biggest mistake you can make with an avoidant, because for them, love is about presence, not words. If they're still engaging, if they're still answering your texts, if they're still making time for you, if they're still showing up in any capacity, that is their love. That is them fighting through their own walls for you. And I get it, I do. You want more. You want the words. You want the physical affection. You want the grand romantic gestures. And when you don't get them, you start making up stories in your head. Maybe I'm not into them. Maybe they don't feel the same way. Maybe I'm just an option, but what if you're wrong? What if the truth is that they are feeling everything you want them to feel, but they don't know how to show it in a way that makes sense to you? What if you're so focused on what they're not doing that you don't even notice what they are doing? You ever stop to think about how exhausting it is for an avoidant to maintain a connection? How much mental energy it takes for them to stay engaged, to be emotionally available, to keep a relationship alive? For if they didn't care, they wouldn't be there. If they didn't love you, they wouldn't be trying at all. Do you know how easy it would be for them to just leave? To ghost, to cut off all contact and go back to their safe little world where they don't have to feel anything. And yet they don't. They stay, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's scary, even when they don't know how to express it the way you want them to. That is love. That is devotion. That is commitment. But you're so busy waiting for some romantic movie moment that you don't even realize it. You're so focused on how they should be loving you that you don't even see how they are loving you. And that is why so many people walk away from avoidance without ever knowing how much they were truly loved. That is why so many people lose something priceless, because they don't understand what they're looking at. And let me tell you, once an avoidant finally walks away, it's over. You don't get a second chance. Because when they love in a way that costs them something. They love in a way that forces them out of their comfort zone. And if they get the message that no matter how hard they try, it's never enough, they won't keep trying. They will disappear. And you will spend the rest of your life wondering why you didn't see it when you had the chance. So let me ask you, do you see it now? Do you see that their silence doesn't mean they don't care? Do you see that their presence is the ultimate proof of love? Do you understand now that just because someone doesn't love you the way you expect doesn't mean they don't love you with everything they have? Because if you don't wake up to this truth, you're going to push away the one person who is fighting their own demons just to love you. And once they're gone, you'll realize too late that they were loving you in the deepest way possible all along. You've been trained to believe that love is big, that it's obvious, that it comes in grand gestures and flowers and handwritten letters, in someone pouring their heart out and telling you they can't live without you. You expect it to be loud. You expect it to be undeniable. And if it doesn't come in that package, you assume it's not there. That's the lie you've been fed. That's the reason you don't see the love that's right in front of you. Because let me tell you something that will change the way you see relationships forever. Avoidants love through small gestures, quiet, hidden, subtle things that you're ignoring because you think love is supposed to look different. But listen to me, the little things they do, the things you barely even notice. That's where their love is. That's where the truth is. Because an avoidant is not the person who will write you poetry or stand outside your window with a boombox playing love songs. But they will remember the way you like your coffee. They will notice the way you get quiet when something is bothering you. They will make sure your car has gas, that you get home safe, that you're comfortable in a room full of strangers. And you're sitting there waiting for a love declaration, missing the fact that they're showing up for you in 100 quiet ways every single day. You think love is supposed to be fireworks, and meanwhile, they're over here building a foundation with you brick by brick in ways so small, so careful that you don't even see it happening. Because in their mind, love isn't about putting on a show. It's about consistency. It's about trust. It's about proving, not just saying. Anyone can say, I love you. Anyone can throw together a romantic dinner or send you a sweet text. But an avoidant, they don't waste their energy on things that don't matter. If they're investing in you, if they're doing things for you that they don't do for anyone else, that is love. That is them making the choice to let you in when their entire system is built to keep people out. And yet you're still doubting. You're still questioning. Because you're looking for something that doesn't exist for them. You're expecting them to be someone they're not. And the truth is, the moment you stop paying attention to what they're not doing and start focusing on what they are doing, you will see that they have been loving you this entire time. In ways so quiet, so small, that they're almost invisible to the untrained eye. Like the way they let you pick the restaurant, even though they hate making plans. The way they send you an article about something random you mentioned in passing weeks ago. The way they sit next to you instead of across from you, because even though physical affection might not come naturally to them, they still want to be close. The way they don't say, I miss you, but they text you a meme or a random thought because that's their way of saying, I'm thinking about you. But because it's not loud, because it's not what you expect, you miss it. You misinterpret it. You think, why aren't they more expressive? Why don't they tell me how they feel? But what if I told you that they are telling you? What if I told you that every time they go out of their way to make your life a little easier, every time they choose to spend time with you, even when their instinct is to be alone, every time they listen instead of speaking, that's love. That's commitment. That's their way of saying, I see you, I value you, I want you in my life. And here's the problem. Most people don't know how to recognize it. They don't know how to appreciate the way an avoidant loves. So they push, they demand more. They say, why can't you be more affectionate? Why don't you say what you feel? And what happens? The avoidant starts to pull back. They feel like their efforts aren't enough. They feel like no matter what they do, it will never be enough. And that is the fastest way to make them disappear. Because let me tell you something, avoidants hate feeling like they're failing. They hate feeling like they can't give you what you need. And if you make them feel like their way of loving isn't enough, they will shut down. They will convince themselves that they are not capable of being the partner you want. And they will leave, not because they don't love you, not because they don't care, but because they believe that staying will only hurt you more in the long run. And that is the tragedy. That is why so many people lose something real before they even understand what they had, because they were so focused on what was missing that they never saw what was already there. So let me ask you, do you see it now? Do you see the small ways they love you? Do you see how much effort it takes for them to do the things that come naturally to other people? Do you understand that every tiny gesture, every little act of service, every moment of presence is them going against their very nature to make sure you feel valued? Because if you don't see it, if you don't start appreciating it, you will lose them. And once they're gone, you will realize that they were loving you in their own way this entire time. But by then it will be too late. You think they don't care because they pull away. You think their silence means they don't feel anything. You think that when they shut down, when they disappear into themselves, when they take space, it's because they've stopped loving you. And that's where you're dead wrong. That's the lie you've been telling yourself. That's the misunderstanding that's causing you to push them even further away. Because let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. When an avoidant distances themselves, when they withdraw, when they go quiet, it's not because they don't love you. It's because they do. And love terrifies them. You need to understand what's really happening inside their mind when they get close to you. You need to understand that for them, intimacy isn't just connection, it's risk. It's exposure. It's danger, because in their past, whether it was childhood, past relationships, or deep emotional wounds they've carried for years, closeness was unsafe. Closeness meant control. Closeness meant pain. Closeness meant abandonment. So their entire nervous system, their entire way of being was built to protect them from exactly what you're asking them to give. And yet they're fighting against every instant they have just to be near you, just to let you in. But here's the truth you need to hear. When an avoidant gets overwhelmed by love, by intimacy, by the depth of what they're feeling, their first instinct is to escape. Not because they want to leave, not because they don't care, but because the emotions are so big, so powerful, so all-consuming that they don't know what to do with them. And so they do the only thing they've ever known how to do. They create distance. They retreat into themselves. They take space not to hurt you, but to regulate themselves, to make sure they don't lose themselves in the very thing they want the most. And this is where most people get it wrong. This is where people mess up and ruin something that was actually beautiful. Because the moment the avoidant peels back, what do most people do? They chase, they panic, they demand answers. They send texts like, what's wrong? Are you mad at me? Why are you being distant? And to you, that feels like love. That feels like reassurance. That feels like you're just trying to understand what's happening. But to them, it feels like suffocation. It feels like pressure. It feels like you are demanding something from them that they don't even know how to give in that moment. So what do? They shut down even more. They pull away even further. Not because they don't care, but because they feel trapped. Because their system is screaming for space, for air, for a second to breathe. And the more you push, the more you chase, the more you try to force them to explain, the more they start to feel like they are failing you, like they are broken, like they will never be able to love you in the way you want. And that is the moment you start to lose them. You think they're leaving because they don't care, but they're actually leaving because they care too much, because being close to you is something they want so badly, but every time they try, they feel like they're drowning. Like they're losing control of themselves. And when they feel that way, their only way of surviving is to create space. So let me tell you something that's going to change everything for you. When an avoidant pulls away, the absolute worst thing you can do is chase them. The worst thing you can do is try to force them to talk, to make them explain, to demand closeness when they are begging for space. If you do that, you will trigger every fear they have about love. You will reinforce their belief that relationships mean losing themselves, that love means pressure, that intimacy means being overwhelmed. And once you do that, once they associate you with that feeling, they will convince themselves that they have to let you go. Not because they want to, but because they believe it's the only way to breathe again. So what do you do instead? You give them the space they need. You let them retreat without punishing them for it. You stop making their distance mean something about you, because that's what's really happening here, isn't it? The moment they pull away, you start telling yourself a story. They don't love me. I'm not important. I must have done something wrong. And instead of letting them have their moment, instead of trusting that their love is still there even when they need space, you panic. You react. You make it all about you instead of understanding that this is their process. You need to understand this. If you ever want to make it work with an avoidant when they pull away, it's not rejection. It's not abandonment. It's regulation. It's them trying to come back to themselves so that they can come back to you. And if you can handle that moment with grace, if you can give them the time and space they need without making them feel guilty, without making them feel like they are failing you, you will see something most people never get to see. Because when an avoidant feels safe with you, when they know that they can take space and you will still be there, that's when they start to trust. That's when they start to open up in ways they never have before. That's when they realize that maybe, just maybe, love doesn't have to be something that suffocates them. Maybe love can be something that holds them without trapping them, that gives them freedom without making them feel alone. And that is when they will start to let you in fully, completely, deeply. But if you make them feel like their need for space is a problem, if you punish them for being wired differently, if you make them feel like their way of loving isn't enough, you will push them into the very thing they fear the most, losing themselves in love. And when that happens, they will run. They will leave. They will shut the door and never look back. So let me ask you, do you want to keep making the mistake that every other person in their life has made? Do you want to keep reinforcing the fear that love means losing themselves? Or do you want to be the one person who finally understands them? The one person who gives them the space to breathe, to process, to come back to you on their own end terms? Because if you can do that, you will see a version of them that nobody else has ever seen. You will experience a love that is deeper than anything you ever thought possible. But if you can't, if you demand that they love you the way you think love should look, you will lose something that you will never, ever find again. You think love is supposed to feel certain. You think that if someone truly loves you, they'll never hesitate, never struggle, never question themselves. You've been fed this idea that love should be effortless, that if it's right, it just flows. But let me tell you something that will shake your entire understanding of relationships. Avoidants don't love like that. They don't fall into love like a warm bath. They don't surrender to it like a romantic movie. For them, love is a fight, a war inside themselves, a battle between everything they crave and everything they fear. And if you don't understand this, if you don't see what's really happening beneath their hesitations, you will walk away from something real without ever knowing the depth of what they felt for you. You think their hesitation means they don't care. You think their struggle means they don't love you. But let me tell you what's really happening. When an avoidant loves, they are stepping into something that terrifies them. They are standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down, knowing that once they jump, there's no turning back. And unlike you, unlike someone who may have grown up feeling safe in love, who believes that connection is something beautiful, an avoidant was never given that luxury. To them, love is not a soft place to land. Love is danger. Love is loss of control. Love is a threat to the very identity they've spent their whole life building, because an avoidant has learned through years of experience that the closer they get to someone, the more power that person has to hurt them. They have learned that vulnerability doesn't lead to connection, it leads to pain. And so when they start to feel real love, when they start to want you in a way they can't control, their instinct isn't to surrender. Their instinct is to resist, to slow down, to second guess themselves, to pull back just to see if they can survive without you. Not because they don't want you, but because they want you too much. And wanting someone that much is terrifying for them. And this is the moment where most people make a fatal mistake. This is the moment where people misunderstand what's really happening and ruin something that could have been everything. Because when an avoidant hesitates, when they struggle, when they start questioning whether they can handle this, what do most people do? They push harder. They try to convince them. They say, why are you making this so difficult? Why can't you just let yourself love me? And they don't realize that in that moment, the avoidant is already loving them. The struggle, I ask the love. The hesitation, I ask the proof. The fact that they are still here, still wrestling with their own fears, instead of running away completely, that is, and fighting against everything they've ever known, just to keep you close. You have no idea how much strength it takes for an avoidant to let themselves love, how much willpower it requires for them to stay when every fiber of their being is telling them to escape. And if you don't understand that, if you make their struggle mean that they don't care, you will push them away for good. Because here's what happens when you demand certainty from an avoidant before they're ready, they shut down. They retreat. They start to believe that they are failing you, that they are incapable of giving you what you need. And that is the moment they convince themselves that the best thing they can do for you is to let you go. And it's tragic because they never wanted to leave. They never wanted to lose you. But if you make them feel like their natural hesitation is a problem, if you make them feel like their way of processing love is wrong, they will disappear. And the saddest part, you will never know how much they loved you because they will never tell you. They will never explain how much they fought against their own fears just to try and stay. They will never let you see the battle that was happening inside them every single day. And by the time you realize that their hesitation was actually proof of how much they cared, they will be gone. So what do you do? How do you handle this moment without making the mistake that everyone else in their life has made? You don't react to their fear with fear of your own. You don't let their uncertainty trigger your insecurity. You don't demand answers. Don't push for more. Don't try to force them to be someone they're not ready to be yet. Instead, you stay steady. You let them wrestle with their emotions without making them feel like they're doing something wrong. You give them the space to navigate their feelings without making them feel like they're on a deadline. And this isn't easy. It takes strength. It takes confidence. It takes an unshakable belief that just because someone hesitates doesn't mean they don't love you. Because the truth is, the stronger the love, the bigger the fear, the deeper the connection, the more terrifying it feels for them. And if you can handle that, if you can be the one person who doesn't punish them for needing time, for needing space, for needing the process, then you will see something rare. You will see them choose you fully, completely, not because they were pressured into it, but because they worked through their own fear and realized on their own that you are worth it. But if you rush them, if you make them feel like their way of loving is a problem, if you let your own insecurity convince you that their hesitation means they don't care, you will lose them. And it won't be because they didn't love you. It will be because they didn't feel safe to love you. So ask yourself right now, can you handle it? Can you be patient? Can you trust in the connection even when they struggle? Can you hold space for their fears without making them mean something about you? Because if you can weather the storm of their hesitation, you will experience something most people never get to see. You will see an avoidant step through their fear, walk through the fire of their own doubts, and choose you not out of obligation, not out of pressure, but unless they finally feel safe enough to love you the way they've always wanted to. You think that if they loved you, they'd say it. You think that if they cared, they'd show it in the way you expect affection, words, reassurances, consistency. But let me tell you something that will shake your entire understanding of love avoidance. Don't express love the way you do. They don't say it when you want them to. They don't show it in the way that makes sense to you. But that doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they don't care. It means that the way they love is hidden. It's in the things you overlook. It's in the moments you don't even realize matter. And if you don't learn to see those signs, you will convince yourself that they never loved you at all. And that would be the biggest mistake of your life. Because here's what you need to understand avoidance, love, and the spaces between. In the pauses, in the gaps where most people miss it, they love in the moments when they remember something you said offhandedly weeks ago and bring it up like it mattered. They love in the way they show up even when it's uncomfortable for them. They love in the way they let you in just a little more each time, even though every part of them is screaming to run. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. You'll miss the way they subtly shift their habits for you, the way they adjust their routines to make space for you, because they won't make a big show of it. They won't declare it in grand gestures. They won't say, look at me, I'm changing for you, but they are. And if you don't notice it, if you don't appreciate it, they will feel like their efforts are invisible. Like no matter what they do, you will never see their love. And that's when they shut down. That's when they decide it's safer to stop trying. Because let me tell you something that will change how you see them forever. Avoidants are not incapable of love. They are terrified of it. They are terrified of being vulnerable. They are terrified of losing themselves. They are terrified of getting hurt in ways they don't know how to recover from. And when they love you, they are walking on a tightrope every single day, trying to balance between what they want and what they fear, trying to be close to you without feeling like they're suffocating. And the way they show love isn't through words, it's through their effort to stay. You think love is about saying, I love you in the right way at the right time. You think love is about constant reassurance. But an avoidance love is in their presence. It's in the fact that they haven't run, that they haven't disappeared, that they are still here fighting against everything they've been wired to believe about connection. And if you keep asking them to prove their love in the way that makes sense to you instead of the way that makes sense to them, you will push them away. Not because they don't love you, but because they feel like they can never love you enough. And this is the moment where most people destroy something that could have been incredible because they don't see the love. They don't recognize the way an avoidant says, I love you without using those words. They don't understand that when an avoidant lets you into their space, it's an act of trust. That when they include you in their world, it's a big deal. That when they choose to be with you, it's not casual. It's a decision that they had to wrestle with because love isn't easy for them. But if you dismiss those efforts, if you make them feel like the way they love isn't good enough, they will leave. Not because they wanted to, but because they felt like they were always failing. So what do? How do you love someone who doesn't express love the way you expect? You learn their language. You stop demanding that they love you in a way that feels comfortable for you and start recognizing the way they are already loving you. You appreciate the small things, the way they listen, the way they remember, the way they create space for you in their life, even when it's difficult for them. You stop measuring love in words and start measuring it in actions. And let me tell you something, when an avoidant feels seen, when they feel like you recognize their efforts instead of criticizing them, something amazing happens. They relax. They start to trust. They start to let go of the fear that no matter what they do, they will never be enough. And when that fear fades, they start to open up in ways you never thought possible.